Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, Dirty Movie. He called himself Holly, FWD-DISCLOSCR. The following was typed from a handwritten letter by the original writer. It is extremely graphic and sadly, very true. A still of the said movie will be added in an attempt to show the world the sociopath responsible for my friend's incarceration. I was a porn director who made movies in the States, where it is illegal, other than the general thrill of being bad, watching nymphos go at each other for nice sums of money. I enjoy the sense of creating sensual body art in the conceited and hypocritical society we live in. Nothing turns people on more than love-making and politics. Several times I have had legal trouble Title 18, Section 1465, and even more times have I been prepared with an attorney on the speed dial just in case. However, call it ignorance if you will, but I continued making these dirty movies. My only rules in the business were to know my boundaries. B. Never step in front of the camera. C. Have talent show identification. And the most important, D. Never touch alcohol on set. When you make porn, it can very well be as easy as it sounds. However, there are things you must be wary of, namely who you surround yourself with, who may cause you more problems than facing the said lawsuit. One such case began in the fall of 2011, after I had come off a 5-year retirement from producing due to my aggressive alcoholism. I was contacted by a couple whom I had worked with under a private contract to help prevent their aging marriage. Remembering how well they paid me, and having had to sober years under my belt, I decided to take a swing at the game once again with a paycheck. I have chosen to keep the amount undisclosed. I hired a cameraman, rented sound equipment, and hired one of the horniest women I have ever met as a fluffer. In case the wife was willing to let her husband get a freebie for timing reasons, we all met at the client's estate, and my camera guy, Jorge, brought with him an assistant camera operator for more angles. This guy, going by the name Holly, was a piece of work. He was a crass, rude and down-playing hypocrite, but damn it, I must admit he had a gift while a camera was in his hands. Jorge warned me how much of a fruit noob he was, but as you should have expected by now, I have met several in this business how ignorant I was to not screen him better. Holly got under my skin faster than a Justin Bieber song, from annoying the clientele to making rude gestures and comments that disgusted even the porn star I brought. He really got us with his apparent fascination with Inspercies erotica, going into great detail of a sex life he shared with his pet cat. The worst thing happened when he mentioned he had noticed the homeowners owned a pet chihuahua themselves, though it was not present. It was obviously interested in seeing it to this extent. I had never known the couple to own a pet, due to the fact it was kept in another room. At this point, both women in the room left, and the male client became infuriated with me for bringing this free. I reminded him that Jorge was, in fact, the one who brought him in without telling me, and as we turned to face him, we found that Holly and Jorge were gone. Still upset myself, I walked in, talked with my client as we entered the kitchen to find the women mixing drinks and doing cocaine. As I proceeded to relapse due to the disturbing evening, the client's wife was holding the pet chihuahua, who had been kept in a downstairs bedroom while we were filming. However, the poor animal was weak and frail, shaking in a way I had never seen a pet do so. The client's wife, stricken with horror, showed us a bloody towel she was using to hold the pet underneath it in her arms. It became obvious what the creep had done, prompting me and the husband to charge out in an attempt to confront Holly and Jorge before they drove off of the property. Sadly, Jorge's car was gone, and we realized we hadn't even noticed them leave. Despite being forgiven myself for my involvement, I was harshly reminded why I retired. The new year has come to pass and I have not even considered returning to porn ever again. However, I still drink to drown the horrors I have witnessed. And as an animal rights advocate, I don't care if anyone blames me. I kept in contact with the ex-clients until their filing for divorce in December 2011. Something I know I am responsible for. In my heart, my once nymphomanic, puck-loving friend has since become a born-again Christian. Good for her. As for Jorge, or that creepy bastard Holly, no idea. Though it's probably for the best that I never see them again. My attorney called me just last week, angrily demanding that I come to his office. As I entered the study, it was very clear he was truly upset with me. He went on to tell me that the former clients were now suing me for animal cruelty. Finding this absurd, my lawyer proceeded to level with me. A video emerged on one of my former porn sites, taking place in the extra bedroom at the ex-client's house. Having come across it, the husband forwarded it to his lawyer, and he sent it to mine along with the lawsuit. From that end, my attorney viewed it and wanted me to see it as well. In the video, which lasted 7 minutes and 6 seconds, Holly was visibly raping the chihuahua, so no audio was recorded. As he was busy with the dog, someone else was definitely holding the camera. I naturally pointed out that he and Jorge had sneaked into the room at some point to do it. But as my lawyer skipped to the 6-minute mark, my throat went straight into my lungs. I was horrified to watch the cameraman turn the camera around to show it was, in fact, my drunken self, smiling and enjoying the event just as much as Holly was. Despite the obvious fact, I had not been drinking for 2 years, nor had I ever met Holly until that night. The damning evidence was right there in front of me. Investigators are searching for the rapist himself. But I know, as I sit here in county waiting for my court date, that they'll never find him. Things have gotten worse since then, as my insanely depressed mother and my now ex-girlfriend came to visit, informing me that Jorge was found dead in Atlanta, Georgia, from an overdose. They went on to say this would be the only time they ever visit, and I am now dead to my family. The stinging pain of knowing that footage is out there somewhere. The fact Holly is still out there. I am a raging alcoholic. These things add to the facts I now accept. I should rot in here. B. I should never have returned to the porn industry. C. I should never have touched alcohol that night. The second story. My experience with Hotel California. I used to go camping a lot with my Boy Scout troop, especially for summer camp, which most of the time is held at the same camping grounds. The place was peaceful. There was a small lake nearby to go fishing at, and since it was used by the Boy Scouts for summer camp, it had a cafeteria in case you couldn't cook your meals for any reason. It was perfect except for one small thing. It was near the penitentiary that the song Hotel California is written about. No big deal though. It's a maximum security facility. There hadn't been a breakout in years. The only ominous thing was that I was camping on the week of the 10th anniversary of a massacre at the penitentiary, where 30 of the most dangerous inmates were killed. I gave that small fact no mind. I mean, what could possibly happen? Those criminals are dead and nobody has escaped in the past 17 years. Nothing bad would happen, right? Wrong. On the first night, my tent mate and I heard some rustling in the nearby bushes. He's somewhat of a paranoid wreck, and thought it was an escaped convict. I assured him that it was just a squirrel or a rabbit or something, and we went back to sleep. Nothing else happened that night, or so we thought, when the wake-up call went off. They announced that 2 campers from another troop had gone missing last night. The troop that lost the campers just so happened to be the troop in the campsite right next to our troop, and the missing camper's tent was just a few feet away from our tent. My tent mate started getting a little scared again, but I gave it no thought. I went throughout the day by following my schedule, going to the right merit badge classes and everything. After dinner, we had the opening campfire, which was mandatory to attend unless you're sick. 2 of the other scouts in my troop were sick, so my tent mate and I had to stay behind and take care of them. We had our own small fire, and both of us fell asleep next to the fire. My tent mate and I woke up when we heard what sounded like a far-off cry for help. Once again, my tent mate got scared shitless, and I got a little concerned this time. I went to wake up the 6 scouts and have them come with us to investigate. But when I got to their tent, all I saw were 2 torn up sleeping bags and a little blood on one of the cots. My tent mate screamed in horror when he saw this, and we both ran to the campfire ceremony to tell everyone what happened. But when we got there, the fire was out, and nobody was around. After worrying for a bit, I remembered there was a Cracker Barrel at the cafeteria after the campfire, and we ran there as fast as we could. When I found our scoutmaster, I told him what we saw, and he immediately told the camp staff, who then announced the news to the entire campgrounds. They decided to lock all gates and exits of the campgrounds so that nobody could get in or out. We'd be stuck here until the end of the week. All troops went back to their campsites and reluctantly went to bed, but in the morning, each of the 11 troops there that still had all their scouts were missing to scouts. Every tent that lost its scouts was left with ripped up sleeping bags and some blood on the cots. Some tents with very little blood, and some with puddles of it. I'd had enough, so I decided that later at night I'd take my survival kit, the troop lighter, my spray on deodorant, and my pocket knife, and sneak off to where I heard the cry for help last night. After everyone had been asleep for a good 2 or 3 hours, I made my journey, and had to go to the edge of the small nearby forest. I took out my headlight, turned it on, and looked around. I chose my path based on recently broken branches and traces of blood. It led me to a small clearing with a big and horrible view. All the missing scouts were there, but half of them were dead, and the other half mortally wounded, battling each other. Before I could even start thinking about why they were killing each other, I felt a cold chill run down my spine, and looked at the edges of the clearing. We were surrounded by the ghosts of the massacre victims from 10 years ago. The ghosts surrounded me and took everything from me except my knife, the lighter, and my body spray. They wanted me to fight, but I refused, until they ordered the remaining campers to come after me. I had no choice now. It was kill, or be killed. One by one I stabbed, cut, and incinerated my fellow scouts, until they were all dead. I looked at the ghosts and said, "I've killed them all. Now let me go." But they just hovered and started grinning eerie. One of them finally came closer and said, "Count how many bodies there is, child." Confused by this request, I hesitantly counted the bodies. There were only 24 bodies. but 26 scouts were missing. That's when I realized that the 2 scouts that weren't there were the ones from my troop. You have to kill them next, but you don't get to stop just after you kill them. You'll stop after we're satisfied with the bloodshed. Then, my troop mates were brought before me, bound and gagged. I went up to them, crying, and told them what I had to do. They let out muffled cries, but I silenced them as quickly as possible by slitting their throats. The ghosts weren't pleased yet. They made me stab and cut them for what seemed like hours before they finally let me go. When I finally found my way out of the forest, the wake-up call had just gone off, and my troop had the horror of waking up to see me covered in blood. Telling them the awful news at first, they didn't believe me and were about to call the police. But for some reason, my tent mate stood up for me and said he believed me. They decided to give me a chance, and I took them to the scene of the bloodbath. They realized that some of the bodies had been dead for 2 days already, and they instantly believed me. After we showed the entire camp what had happened, they evacuated the campgrounds immediately and called the police, who immediately closed down the camp ever since then. The song Hotel California is the only song I'm able to hear on the anniversary week of that incident. Nearly 10 years have passed since that horrible day, and they're replaying it again this summer on the 20th anniversary of the massacre at the penitentiary and the 10th anniversary of the massacre in the forest. May God have mercy on the scouts going there this summer, because the ghosts of the 30 convicts and the 26 scouts sure as hell won't show mercy. Not after what I experienced. The third story, disabled. When it comes to Pokemon, my favorites have to be Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff. When I was a little girl, I dream of having a puffy Jigglypuff. I even used to have a bunch of Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff plushies. They would surround my pillow, and each night I would cuddle with a different one, just to make sure they each got some love. Anytime my Jigglypuff or Wigglytuff used to sing, I would hum the little tune with them, thinking it made my chances better for the opposing Pokemon to fall asleep. I was very naive back then, but it was blissful innocence, to be honest. Hell, I even played Jigglypuff in the brawl games. I didn't care if anyone else didn't like her. I did. So, when I got my hands on Pokemon Soul Silver when it first came out, I, of course, made it my mini-mission to find a Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff. I went through the game, waiting for Puffs and Tuffs to show up. I encountered the occasional trainer with a Puffertuff, but I soon found out that Jigglypuff S could only be caught in one set area, which I later found to be the game's Safari Zone, and Wigglytuffs could not be found in the wild at all for me. At that point, Safari Zone was not active for me, so I was stuck waiting a little while longer to capture my beloved Puff. After a week or so of battling and schoolwork, Safari Zone was finally available. I went there once. I had a chance to go and went on a hunt for Jigglypuff. And of course, it was not easy. I ran into maybe 8 the first trip and lost all 8 of them. I remember calling my DS Lite a cheater. Next day, though, I finally caught my first Jigglypuff. I happily named her Ju-un and put her in my party SAP. It took some time to get her up to the level of the rest of my team, but well worth it for me. I even kept her sing, since it felt so nostalgic to hear that lovely tune again. Sadly, school got busy for me for a while, so I was forced to put my game on hold. But once I got my free time back, I went right back to work, making sure all my Pokemon loved me. especially my Juan, but I still didn't have my Wigglytuff. I didn't want to lose Juan, so I thought about getting an already evolved Wigglytuff, since Safari Zone has proven its dislike of me. So I set a call out on the wireless trade asking for a Wigglytuff, any gender and at any level. I wasn't picky at the time, but now I wish I had been picky in exchange for a new Wigglytuff. I put out a wonderfully bred Toto that had some killer moves, even for a level 6. I waited for hours, thinking someone would see the quality right away and send a trade. I waited days. Maybe someone would just happen to want a Toto to raise. Nearly 2 weeks had passed, and I still had no response. I had already given up hope and was ready to use a moonstone on Juan. I ended up checking one last time to make sure, and I wanted to get my Toto back somehow, if no one was going to take him. But it didn't send me to the main menu for the wireless trading. Instead, I got the dramatic evolving music, and a POK ball came flying from the top screen to the bottom. Finally, I got my Wigglytuff. I quickly logged out to see my new friend, a female Wigglytuff. Level 26, the name was a bit odd though. DISABLE in all caps. I didn't get why someone would name a Wigglytuff that, but I had seen stranger names for Pokemon. I just wished I could have changed it, but for some reason, you could never change the name of traded Pokemon. Its information was a bit odd, but I was never one for those kinds of details, or learning the meanings behind those details. Gloomy nature, and it only knew one move Sing. I didn't recall ever seeing Gloomy before, but I had seen Timid, so I figure if they can be shy, they can be sad too. Though you would have to wonder what Pokemon would be gloomy, and the fact it only knew Sing did bug me. It would have been nice if its previous trainer left some more moves, but I had some nice team is to try on it anyway. Despite the off information, I was eager to try out the Wigglytuff in battle. I checked my character's bag and picked the best TM I was almost sure would work. I ended up picking Hidden Power, Swagger, and Explosion. I headed over to the nearest patch of grass and walked around aimlessly looking for a fight. The battle music came on and the Pokemon was a Ponyta. I picked Fight and used just to make Wigglytuff's first fight was easy. It failed. Well, I knew Sing didn't always work, so I didn't think anything of it. Ponyta used Tail Whip. It was cute, but only lowered my defense. My turn again, so I used Hidden Power, just to see if I was in the right place for it. I wasn't, since I barely made a nick in the Ponyta's HP. It used Tail Whip again. I figured that the game was using that same trick the lower level Pokemon used. This time, I tried Sing again. The screen acted like it had used Sing, but there was no sound. Sing was disabled. I just stared at my screen. How was it Sing unusable? Was it a stupid trick? I let Ponyta use its Tail Whip again, but then Wigglytuff shook a bit like it was suffering from an effect. I thought I saw the sprite change, but then I realized that I probably got a glitchy Pokemon. I cussed a bit, pissed that I lost a good Pokemon for a hacked one. I didn't want this one messing with my game, so I picked Run. DISABLED wants to fight, you could not leave the battle. Oh come on, I remember saying out loud. I kept thinking that it was probably about to ruin my game. I thought Ponyta was about to attack this turn, but it didn't. Its little sprite shook like it was poisoned. Ponyta was frozen in fear. It might not attack. I knew this was getting too weird. I tried to pick run again, but another weird text came up. Disable wants to fight you, cannot leave the battle. I didn't even see that the text was different this time. I was able to pick another option. I couldn't run, so I fought. I tried hidden power again. Hidden power was disabled. I had to pick another one. I tried swagger. Swagger was disabled. What was doing this to its moves? All these questions popped up in my head, one after another. What did that guy who gave me this Wigglytuff do? I have to escape. I can't keep this Pokemon. I knew I could just turn the game off, but I wanted to see what was happening. I wanted to see what was wrong with my Wigglytuff. I was stuck with only two options, Sing and Explosion. Sing was already disabled from past attempts, so I could only use Explosion. That move would take out the Wigglytuff and the Ponyta, ending the battle. I thought that maybe it was a good thing. Explosion was disabled. I didn't even have a chance to react before more text came up. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. It was doing it on. Soon the sprite started shaking a bit more than before. More obviously. Ponyta is frozen in fear. Can no longer escape from battle. I felt my heart start to pound. Maybe this was what Ponyta was feeling at the time. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. Disable he tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing. Sing was disabled. Disable tried using Sing was disabled. Each time the text past Wigglytuff sprites turned dark and darker. Disable used struggle. I watched in horror as the Wigglytuff used struggle. Like it had no other moves to use most of the time. It didn't even hit the Ponyta. Just Wigglytuff, like it was hurting itself. The Ponyta finally fled from the battle, and the sequence ended. I wished I could have gone with it, since Wigglytuff was first in my party. It was walking along with me on screen. Its color... I turned my character to talk to it. It didn't say anything to me. I tried again, becoming strangely desperate to figure out what was happening to the Wigglytuff. I was so joyed to finally have. I just wanted to sing. I wasn't sure who was talking. Maybe it was a voiceover, I thought. I talked to it again. Why can't I sing? Just sing. Each time I spoke to it, its cry grew softer and softer, like it was a toy breaking. I began to feel bad for Wigglytuff and headed back for the city to heal it. It was the least I could do before I turned my game off, taking it back to the time when I just barely got it, before I used it. Sadly, we didn't get far. We encountered another Pokemon battle, another Ponyta. I picked run, but just like last time, disable wants to fight. You cannot escape the battle. No one had time to react to what happened during this fight. Onita was too slow for some reason and was stuck in battle. The options menu did not come up for me. Disable tried to use thing is best. There was so much text it moved off the box itself. It was finally glitching out, I thought. Disable used struggle. It struggled and 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 struggled. With each struggle, Wigglytuff took more and more damage. Though this time the wild ponies got hit more this time too. The wild Ponyta fled. I thought the fight was over, but the battle screen stayed up. I began mashing the buttons, thinking maybe it was going to talk again, and I needed to press A or B. The screen faded and changed to the evolving screen. I couldn't speak, my heart sank and I felt my eyes water. The once normal Wigglytuff's right was faded, its left ear was torn off, and red pixel covered the broken and its tired eyes were pitch black, with only a red dot to show its pupils. Even its mouth had red coming from it, like blood was dripping out. Why can't I sing? Why? Can you sing? Yes or no? I pick no. I just wanted this to end. You're lying, you can sing. Give me your sing. Yes or no? I hit no about 4 or 5 times. Sing. SSS. The speakers let out a high-pitched screech, making me drop my DS to get it away. I ran out of my room and called a friend. I couldn't touch the game after that. My friend came over, seeing as I could not hide the panic I was feeling. She laughed at me, but I told her I wasn't touching the game. She picked it up from me and looked at it, shaking her head as she turned it off and closed it. She handed it back to me. I think you broke it, she told me, leaving my room and heading for the living room. She stayed with me the rest of the day and night. I couldn't get that image out of my head. The next morning, with my friend sitting next to me, I put the Wigglytuff up for trade. I found someone that was offering a Cyndaquil in exchange for a Wigglytuff. I hit the button as hard as I could, wanting it to hurry up. The trade went through. I still have that Cyndaquil. Whoever had him named him Hurry.